So the Buckeyes took care of business on the road. They returned to the Shoe on Saturday night for the primetime showdown. And we welcome in our primetime player, Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyesScoop.com. And Gerd, before we get into that Penn State matchup, let's wrap up the Indiana game. Ohio State came out. They did exactly what you wanted them to do. 30 points in the second quarter as they blew out the Hoosiers.
Yeah, it was exactly what they wanted to do. And Indiana got that first touchdown, and then Ohio State never looked back. And they harassed every quarterback that Indiana threw out there. They did everything they wanted to do on offense. That was, as good as any of the coaches could have hoped for, but it was also exactly what they were planning for. So when you make happen exactly what you've set out to do, that's a good feeling. And it lets them know that they can rely on their players. They can continue to ask more, and it lets the players know that they have it in them to do that, and they can trust their coaches to put them in good spots. It just leaves them, they came out of that Oregon game very confused, I think. I don't think there's any confusion anymore, and there's just confidence. That was something that Brian Day talked a lot about, and some of the players did as well, just how confident the team is right now.
And one of the themes that we heard today from the Buckeyes is it's going to get more difficult from here on out, starting with Penn State. I think one of the interesting points is C.J. Stroud's picked apart some secondaries the last couple of weeks that haven't been completely healthy. This is going to be a Penn State secondary that is healthy, a Penn State defense that is much tougher than Indiana, and we thought Indiana was going to be the toughest defense Ohio State had faced to this point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, to see what C.J. Stroud can do against two very good corners, good safeties, and knowing that the pass rush might bother him a little bit. So there's going to be more going on in his mind. What does that do? Does that slow him down? Does that speed him up too much? Where does that leave his accuracy? Where does that leave his fundamentals? And so this is going to be a fun test to watch. And not, even aside from the actual matchups of, Joey Porter Jr. defending Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson in the Tariq Castro Fields taking the other guy, and those individual matchups, how does C.J. Stroud handle it? How accurate does he remain? Because if he continues to complete 70% of his passes and almost checks up rather than checking down for some more difficult passes down the field rather than just dumping stuff off, and he continues to hit those things, at some point it almost feels like the Ohio State offense is in a zone. C.J. Stroud is in a zone, and we saw some tight windows that he's throwing into, so the confidence is there. Can he keep that confidence if things don't go perfectly or don't go well in, say, the first quarter? Does that extend into the second quarter? Does that extend into the third quarter? Or is this who he is now, just confidence-wise? Now, not everything's going to go perfectly, but does he have the confidence that one bad quarter doesn't mean anything because I'm still C.J. Stroud?
And Ryan Day talked about that thin line between confidence and cockiness, and how you maybe want to be a little bit more cocky during a practice so that you know what can work so you can be confident during a game.
I really like that. And he said, yes, quarterbacks need to be confident. You don't really like him to be cocky, but it's okay in practice at times. And that's almost where kids have to touch the hot stove to know it's hot and know what they can get away with. And the parents are like, see, I told you it was hot. And that's Ryan Day. Like, told you that, that coverage was hot, and now C.J. Stroud has learned. But also, and it's not even getting away with it, it's being capable of it, I think is a better way, because you don't want your quarterback getting away with stuff. You want them to be capable of stuff. Getting away with something implies that they've made a decision that they shouldn't have, and that's not what you want your quarterback to do. You want them to make the right decision and then be able to execute it. And with this passing offense the way it is right now, there are almost several correct decisions on every single pass play, because when you're seeing him looking downfield, and the pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba is what I'm talking about, that seam pass, and you see two guys that look open underneath it, he's got a world of options. And when that first read is not always open, but when that first read is there, that just gives everybody so much confidence.
Other side of the ball, this Ohio State defense, 5 sacks against Indiana. Indiana had their issues with their offensive line. They had their issues with their quarterback. Some of those sacks came with guys slipping, but we saw good production from the Ohio State defense. They're going to go up against a Penn State offense that, yes, you've got Sean Clifford back at quarterback, but let's face it, this Nittany Lion offense has not been very explosive the entire season. They have really not been explosive the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's certainly not been explosive in 2-point conversion areas as well. And Sean Clifford being back is, I guess it's better than him not being back, because you saw what happened with the Indiana offense once Jack Tuttle was gone and Ohio State knocked him out. They were done. 15 players, 15 Buckeyes recorded tackles for loss in that game, either, half a tackle or more, which is a number that I've never seen before from the Buckeyes. And now bringing that confidence back to a Penn State offense that they do have Jahan Dotson at receiver. The running game has not been what they had expected. Penn State has recruited well at running back, but they just can't get anything going there. Sean Clifford, James Franklin said he's 100% healthy, but we know that we can't always believe stuff James Franklin said today. So how healthy does he stay then? And how much does that defensive line continue to get after him? Because I don't really see a lot of offensive issues coming Ohio State's way. I do look forward to somebody mentioned in the interview session, Jahan Dotson against Denzel Burke. And I thought, ooh, that's something that I'm going to look forward to watch. And hopefully those two, will see if they get matched up much on Saturday. But yeah, there's not a lot of stuff there on the Penn State offense that can really consistently give Ohio State trouble.
Dotson with a big game against Ohio State last year in the Buckeye victory in Happy Valley. Let's talk about James Franklin and what he said. Now, I think we're all pretty certain that Ohio State's focus is on Penn State, but there are some questions about where James Franklin's focus is. He's been linked to the USC job. There's rumors about the LSU job, and when he was asked specifically about that on Tuesday, he gave a very interesting answer with a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, he said his focus is on Illinois, and later on during his Zoom session, he said it again. So at two separate instances in his session with reporters, he said his focus is on Illinois, which I don't know how you confuse Ohio State and Illinois. I can understand a slip of the tongue, but there's nothing Freudian in any of that. There's nothing like that. And so it does leave you wondering where exactly his head is. I've been told from an NFL source that they feel like if USC reaches out and wants him, then he will take that job. And you wonder if, is this one of those days, the first coaching rumors are always about the coach's wife was seen shopping for a house in a campus neighborhood, or, like Shelley Myers shopping for a house in Dublin in 2011 or something like that. And so you wonder if there's going to be something of that pops up about James Franklin, and his wife and his daughters were seen in LA, and then boom, there you go. That's the first big clue. But yeah, his mind has to be a lot of places right now. Where it absolutely should be is what's going to happen Saturday night, because Ohio State is clicking right now on offense. The defense looks like it's better. I think we all agree that it's better. They haven't really played an offense that can disprove anybody right now, and I don't know that that's going to change Saturday night either.
He also referred to going to the big house, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, and maybe he's just a student of the Ohio State campus residential history, and he remembers the fact that Ohio State used to be a dormitory. So for those students, it was a house many, many years ago. So during that same time frame is when Keith Byers was running wild in the shoe, and this Saturday, Ohio State's going to honor Keith Byers as he is going into the College Football Hall of Fame. My question for you: biggest Ohio State Heisman snub? Is it Byers in '84, Orlando Pace in '96, maybe even Archie Griffin his sophomore year at Ohio State?
Well, I'll take Archie out of this. He got his two. If he wants to complain, that's a little bit much. For me, Keith Byers lost his Heisman based on one play by Doug Flutie, a Hail Mary against Miami. So that's painful. Orlando Pace was the best player in college football, maybe from the moment he stepped onto the field. And he got some Lombardis and some Outlands and some All-American awards. He's the best college football player I've ever seen. And it would have been nice if that was recognized by a Heisman Trophy rather than just, well, you're a finalist. That's like winning it for a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman or even a wide receiver. And so, yeah, I'm going to go Orlando Pace, but that's just because that was my time frame, that I was in school for that. Keith Byers, I was a child, and that's a tough one, and you put me in a terrible situation. But I'm going to have to side with Orlando Pace, the greatest player I ever saw, even though maybe that's the worst situation for a Heisman to be taken away from somebody just based on one Hail Mary where all you did was throw the ball. You needed somebody else to come down with it.
Yeah, Orlando Pace losing out to Danny Werfel. Werfel certainly had better numbers in 96 than Flutie had in 84, but Flutie had that magical Heisman moment on the Friday after Thanksgiving where everybody was still in the turkey coma and was watching it. That snapped him out of the turkey coma. So Buckeyes in Penn State, a rich history, and we always get into this conversation about, is Penn State really a rival? And certainly Ohio State takes them seriously, but let's face it, outside of 2016, which is a game that perhaps saved James Franklin's job at Penn State, Ohio State has dominated this series. There hasn't been that many Penn State victories. There's been some Penn State chokes in both 2018 and 2019. Are we getting into the same territory with Michigan when it comes to Penn State, that they really need to win one of these games for it to be a rivalry?
That's a good question. And I know Ohio State fans look forward to the game. I know Ohio State's ticket office looks forward to the game because that's usually the most expensive ticket on the slate because of the home and home being different than the Michigan game. But if you really want to raise some ire, yes, beat Ohio State. And even the 2016 win, they beat Ohio State, but Ohio State still went to the playoffs. So what did you really accomplish? And so, yeah, as Ryan Day and some of the players said on Tuesday, the games are usually pretty close. They're dogfights, maybe closer than they should be at times. And even though I don't know where Penn State is going to come up with some offense, I do expect something to happen just because that's what this series has been. But then eventually Ohio State just wears them out and wins by whatever they need to. I don't know how it's going to happen. And maybe it's time for it not to happen simply because I after watching Penn State all season long, I just don't know where the offense is going to come from. The defense might keep them in this thing for a little bit, but even if it's 21-0 in the third quarter, that's a blowout against this Penn State team with the offense that they have.
Last week against Indiana, we saw Ohio State's defensive streak of scoring a touchdown come to an end. For many Buckeye fans, PSU stands for Pick Six University. I want to thank Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeScoop.com for joining us to break down the Buckeyes and Nittany Lions.